Get started. Okay, I guess I'll get started. Thank you, local folks and people on Zoom and people watching the recording. Welcome to the first CIIR talk of the academic year. These talks will continue throughout the year. Do please watch for announcements of upcoming talks. Most talks are recorded and made available via YouTube, so if you miss a talk, you can still see it. So use your favorite search engine or AI to find out where those are listed, and including historical talks if you'd like to look at old ones. Today's speaker is Souvick, who goes by Vic Ghosh, who is someone who is interested in data mining with language models, focusing on applications within conversational systems, HCI, and machine learning. He develops cross-disciplinary approaches to trustworthy AI and also ethical considerations for conversational systems and for decision-making. His self-described focus is on improving the lives of marginalized communities through the application of trustworthy AI. He's an assistant professor in the School of Information at San Jose State University, where he directs the ICANN lab, which I assume is just a very positive thing, ICANN, but it actually stands for Intelligent Conversational Agents and Neural Networks Lab. He co-leads the San Jose's new Human-Centered AI Certificate and an interdisciplinary Human-Centered AI minor. He's the author of more than 4 refereed publications and a forthcoming edited book on AI and social justice. Today, he's here to talk to us about his work on human-centered AI for information seeking and decision-making. Please join me in welcoming Vic Ghosh to the CIIR Talk Series.
Hi, everyone. And thanks, Dr. Allan, for the introduction. And definitely thanks, Dr. Zamani, for inviting me here. So I think Dr. Allan did a terrific job introducing and kind of speaking about my presentation today. So as the title suggests,
I forgot to say the ground rules. If you have a question, if you're local, raise your hand. If you're remote, put something in chat or something. We'll pay attention. Vic and I have agreed that first few interruptions are going to be great, but if you get too many of them, we're going to have to hold them off until the end so he can get through all his material. Okay, now. Welcome again.
Yes. So the title of today's presentation is Advancing Human-Centered AI and for Information Seeking and Decision Making. So I'll start with a brief background on where I stand, the interdisciplinarity of it, and what I'm doing. Throughout this presentation, I'll talk about some of the recent research which I did over the last 2-3 years and how they align. In my mind, it may seem that they're too scattered in different directions, but I do feel like I have a pretty good handle of what I'm researching on. So again, AI systems, we feel that they're increasingly integral to societal structures. If we think of healthcare, from education, finance, law enforcement, these are the different areas where we are seeing AI being applied more and more. But what we all realize is these systems, they don't really operate in a vacuum. They interact with the complex human and socio-technical dynamics. And in this presentation, I'll talk about like how we are trying to build AI systems that are human-centered, defining what human-centered is, and AI systems that doesn't merely function effectively, algorithmically, but again, serves and communicates in a way that are fair, ethical, and are aligned with human and social values. So now, when we are looking at AI and information seeking, it mediates how people search, sense, and make decisions. And it goes from everyday queries to very high-stake environments where we have to take judgments and also institutional workflows. So again, I'll outline a human-centered agenda which we are following for accountable AI that treats conversation as primary interface for information seeking and decision support. And a primary reason behind that is I did my PhD in conversational AI. That was the first area which I was interested in. And as AI kept thriving more and more, we looked at applied AI, and then we are looking at responsible and ethical AI, and now human-centered AI, which tries to encompass all of that. And I have one slide where I kind of explain that. So I'll discuss some of my ongoing work, and then that detects bias, uncertainty, makes model behavior intelligible, and minimizes interaction burden on the user. There comes the HCI part. And then finally, it's AI that respects cultural and legal context, which is, again, easier said than actually doing it, but we are trying. So now to bridge the gap between what AI can do and what AI should do, we do need a multifaceted interdisciplinary approach that goes beyond just the technology itself and considers the broader social and ethical dimensions of AI. And this philosophy kind of underpins the three pillars of my research impact. One would be the research side of it, obviously. Then there's education, and then there's outreach. So in this talk, I'll focus more on the research aspects, and I'll probably touch on some of the teaching and outreach as well. So first, my research again it combines applied AI, human-centered AI, conversational AI, and the focus is on bias and uncertainty detection and again accountable decision support. So my research is grounded in the belief that human-centered AI it cannot be achieved solely through technical proficiency or algorithmically. It requires a deep understanding of the different socio-technical dynamics, how technology interacts with and impacts society and people. And this research not only contributes to academic knowledge, but also informs industry standards and regulatory policies, helping to shape an AI landscape that people can actually trust. Again, education, it involves equipping students and professionals to critically engage with AI. Uh, my goal in teaching is to go beyond, again, technical skills at our school, college, and community levels. We constantly try to educate students and on responsible computing and how that responsible computing curricula can be woven into programs. And the third pillar, the outreach, it represents my commitment to extending these discussions beyond academia. And this could be professional communities like ASIST, ALA, public spaces. We work with the San Jose City. We work with the Gov AI Coalition at the City of San Jose, and also the marginalized communities. So SGSU is a big Hispanic organization as well. We are an ANAPC and HSI organization. So we are constantly working with different student communities. And again, libraries, archives, civic partners, and we are trying to co-design some of these technologies. So it's not just about disseminating the knowledge, but also about fostering trust and empowering these communities so that they can use AI in their work, but they can also trust the AI, use them responsibly. And again, outreach involves AI literacy, and you could see like the banner behind me. That's because I'm also San Jose State's AI fellow for this year. So I'm trying to develop different programs and plans just so we can incorporate AI in our programs and curriculum. And again, together, these three pillars, they create the foundation for advancing human-centered AI in ways that are both meaningful and impactful. Now, when I again think of my research, I must relate to the sense-making approach. And this was developed by Brenda Darwin, and which is foundational to understanding how people process complex information in real-world contexts. So sense-making is a theory in information science that emphasizes that the active role individuals play in constructing meaning from information. So rather than seeing information transfer as linear, going from the source to the destination, sense making acknowledges that people must interpret, contextualize, and sometimes struggle to make sense of this new knowledge. And the essence of Darwin's approach lies in the idea that people do not passively receive and consume information, but they actively construct meaning through a series of steps or bridges which goes across these gaps in their understanding. And you can see in the picture here. So these gaps, they represent moments of uncertainty or confusion that arise when individuals encounter new or ambiguous information or contexts. Sense making is the process of building this bridge over each gap to create coherent and enable action in the face of complexity. So, in the context of current AI growth, this concept becomes especially relevant because AI technologies, this rapid evolution and their application, that's the context, that's the gap which has created. And as it is being embedded in our daily lives and societal functions, this complexity has created those gaps. And those gaps are both in terms of technical limitation, but also uncertainty in how we are using it, the ethical dilemmas of it. And we must bridge that gap using interdisciplinary lens. And I'm bringing interdisciplinary because coming from computer science, we often develop algorithms, which is again great, which is what's pushing this domain forward. But again, we tend to forget about the other aspects of it as well. So, because these gaps, they are not just technical. Whenever it's people involved, whenever there's communities involved, there's a lot of social and ethical aspects. And I think FAIR or FATE, we are touching on some of those in terms of transparency, accountability, fairness. But there's also the other aspect of it, which is the people, culture, communities. So again, HCI, definition-wise, it's a methodology, and this is how I define it based on multiple sources. It's a methodology for building AI systems that prioritizes human well-being and autonomy, uh, ensuring that technology empowers individuals rather than replacing or diminishing them. So in a nutshell, it's an interdisciplinary approach. Again, we are trying to bring in people from computer science, from philosophy, from political science, from AI governance. And the goal is to prioritize the human well-being, dignity, and autonomy at each stage of the AI lifecycle. And it integrates technical innovation with social insight by combining this expertise coming from these different domains. And rather than simply automating tasks, human-centered AI's goal is to empower and include diverse user groups. And we can empower them by making them part of the conversation from the requirement analysis step to when we are prototyping and testing it out in the wild. And again, making those changes so that when we actually deploy those models, they are to the benefit of those communities. And then again, we can adopt a multi-stakeholder perspective as well, where we engage those communities as well as the industry, the policymakers and end users early and iteratively. And the ultimate goal is to improve the human condition. Now, when I look at my research, it's guided by one core belief that AI should contribute positively to the well-being of all communities, and not just to those who traditionally have access to technology. And this slide illustrates the interdisciplinary nature of my research interests, which you can see, let me see, which kind of sits in the intersection of several fields, which includes AI and machine learning, human-computer interaction, and ethics. And my approach is, again, combining qualitative and computational techniques. My background is in natural language processing and machine learning with qualitative methods, which includes interviews, user interaction studies, and thematic analysis. And this allows me to capture, in my mind, I feel that allows me to get a more comprehensive view of AI's impact on users and on the society. And as I highlighted here, the focus on end users is central to my research. In many of my projects, I do develop experimental user studies to gather direct feedback from the user. I would probably develop a prototype, give it to the user, get feedback from them through surveys, through eye monitoring, through interviews, and then try to assess their satisfaction levels. And this feedback is crucial not only for understanding their needs and experiences, but also for refining those systems to see if there are any hidden goals or hidden parameters that we should prioritize in terms of ethics and again societal values. Now, by working within these intersections, my goal is to again build those AI systems that uphold the ethical standards and serve diverse communities and the needs of our society. So first, I will discuss some of my recent work in conversational AI. And again, if you can see, like these are some of the areas which I'm working in, improving the dialogue quality, doing a needs-driven design approach where we focus on what the user really wants, modeling speech acts, implementing them in terms of search actions, and developing sentiment-aware systems. So conversational systems, they are ideally, and I started this work during my PhD time, which I did from 2016 to 20, and we still didn't have the large language models. So we were trying to work with neural networks and trying to make sure how the systems they can hold dynamic multi-turn dialogues with users. And that's what separates it from simple voice command systems. And the studies he presented here, they share a common objective. How can we improve user experiences by understanding how conversational agents can better engage with users in complex information seeking tasks? And we are focusing on these four areas. The first study, it's an investigation into Belkin's cognitive communication model and seeing how that holds in human generative AI information seeking. Because nowadays we see a lot of our students, a lot of our end users, they're actually using ChatGPT or other large language models for their searches. And we wanted to explore uh, how the older theories in information seeking they are still holding up to this new user information interaction scenarios. And we will be presenting this paper this year. We have it accepted at ASIST and we'll be presenting it. In the second study, we investigated the role of system clarifications in user experiences. We conducted a Wizard of Oz study where a human played the role of the conversational systems. And we evaluated if explicit system clarifications, which provides explanation about search processes, the steps which the agent is taking, if it actually enhanced the search experience of the user. And interestingly, our findings show that while clarifications, they do not always positively impact user experience, they also could decrease it at certain times. And this challenges assumptions about transparency in conversational systems, suggesting that the timing and nature of the clarifications, combined with the complexity of the search tasks, they're crucial in determining how we should provide those clarification and what kind of transparency should we provide. And in the third study, again, we applied economic model to conversational search. And in this research, we analyzed the cost and benefit of each conversational search actions and calculated their impact on the user satisfaction and their feeling if the task was a success or not. So using this cost benefit framework, we created some mathematical models that try to optimize this conversational search by balancing the depth or the number of turns of interaction and user satisfaction. And the last paper here, which was actually nominated for the Vannevar Bush Best Paper Award at JCDL 23, we address the challenges of translating user intentions into search actions. So first, we try to identify the speech acts in user dialogues, which could be request for information, clarification, query rewording, and we were able to predict what kind of system level search actions were optimal in those situations. And we used an attention-based neural network. And our model showed significant accuracy while in detecting the speech acts. The search actions were in the pipeline, so the accuracy was not as high, but they still showed the user satisfaction was actually increased when the system could predict those activities. And moving forward with some other researches which I did, and here the focus was on design and interaction. And the first paper, we analyzed the limitation of current voice-based personal assistants in handling complex multi-turn search tasks. And again, we did a lab study. We examined how the commercial assistants, they fall short of users' expectation in conversational search situations. And then we made some design guidelines and suggestions of improvement. And the next study, we actually used another framework, which is Maslow's framework on human needs, to see what kind of human needs are the top priority and what are the lowest priority and how they relate with conversational search situations, and seeing how those agents could be tailored to meet the higher level needs while they could sometimes potentially ignore those lower level needs. And this was a short paper, and it was another work done on clarifying those speech acts. And we again focused on multiple channels of classification using an attention network. And we actually outperformed the then state-of-the-art models like BERT at that time. And we do have I do have a funding here from the RISCA seed grant program, which is run by the SGSU Office of Research. So it's an internal grant, but I received this grant in 2023 to carry on research on explainable sentiment-aware conversational agents. And again, the goal is to build agents which can detect sentiment and adjust the responses accordingly. And together, these studies, they aim to make conversational agents capable of supporting complex information seeking tasks. And again, if they are sentiment aware, if they can tailor the responses to the user's current sentiment without being explicitly guided to do that, then it could actually enhance the user satisfaction. Now I'm pivoting to the different area of work, and this would be applied AI, and I would each slide I would cover some of the different domains where we are applying AI. And the reason is some of my students in my lab, they do like working in different areas, but they also want to apply AI in those areas. So we try to see how we can optimize those. And in this slide, we're looking at AI and social media. And some of the work we are doing relates to automated content analysis, public opinion mining, synthetic data annotation and generation, as well as evaluation. So I use AI to analyze social media data, which is again a very powerful source of public opinion and real-time information sharing. And working with platforms like Twitter or X now, TikTok and Reddit, because these are the spaces where the social interaction happens. But we can also understand public sentiment on relevant or contemporary topics, understand the professional discourse, and also support emergency response efforts. So my colleagues and I, we used a human AI collaborative content analysis approach, where the LLMs, they simulate qualitative coders. So they are performing content analysis of TikTok videos through conversations among themselves. And then the human feedback, which we incorporate at the end of each round, that's incorporated iteratively to improve the analysis performance. And this is actually a three-part project. So this is the first part where we used LLM to do that. Currently, we are working on the second part of it, where we are trying to create a gold standard data using uh, expert annotators. And the third period would again be to improve these models through a different architecture. And we also analyzed the Twitter sentiment on the US aid to Ukraine, and which at that time, which I think this was from last year, which was a topic of significant geopolitical interest. And since we had minimal annotated data available, we compared various sample efficient methods to kind of gather in this public opinion across the different US states. And this research, it demonstrates how we can use large language models uh, and then different learning approaches like few shot and zero shot learning approaches, not just for sentiment analysis, but also for synthetic data annotation. And the second study here, it focused on crisis informatics also, like because we have different areas which are central to, say, California wildfire or the Florida hurricanes. So when we are looking at this and we are looking at different social media platforms, we could actually tailor our crisis response and communication by using a large language model to kind of create summary and to actually do some automatic metadata generation as well. So I'll go to that later. But then I'll jump to the next study where we examined again the discourse of academic librarians on Twitter. So again, following a similar logic, we tried to generate those auto annotations and then did some sentiment analysis of that. And I wouldn't go through all the papers, but again, the last one was on Reddit's advice communities, and we worked with different linguistic patterns, sentiments, and demographic disclosures to see how the language which we are using varies based on the community context. And then we also tried to identify the gendered differences in the language usage. So collectively, again, we are trying to see social media as a data source, but also a source for like public opinion and crisis response. So all the research, this and the ones we are working currently, we are trying to use that for that. And now let's look at some of the research because one of the big programs where I teach is MLIS, which is kind of catered towards library and information science professionals. So some of my research is obviously integrating AI into library and archival systems. And our goal is to enhance both the user experience as well as the operational efficiency in these institutions. And as we are seeing that digital collections, they're growing at a very fast rate, and the demand for access is also increasing. So we can use large language models and generative AI for not only retrieval but also record keeping and archival management. So in the first paper, we actually tried to apply AI to streamline the archival process for appraisal and selection, which are traditionally very which are traditionally very time-consuming process. But again, if we incorporate generative AI and large language models in that, we could actually use it to complement rather than replace human judgment. These two papers here, they're actually systematic reviews, and they provide a analysis of how AI is being used in archival science and libraries. What are the challenges they are facing, both in terms of technology and some of them are also related to ethics of it, the privacy, and so on. And the the paper here, which we are actually looking at, these two papers, the first and the last papers here, they are working. I'm working with an eBay collaborator on how we can incorporate generative AI in customer service, and we are looking at automating responses while again respecting the privacy of customers. We have examined that there's a gap between academic research on generative AI, something which we are doing in the university, and how these solutions are actually deployed in real world enterprise contact centers. And what we saw that there are problems with localization, gaining the customer's trust, and also making sure that there's an efficient handoff between the human agents and the automated agentic networks which we have. Like, so how the handover happens, and is there a transparency to the user on it? Because there's definitely an issue of trust there. So trying to identify how we can include those, and what kind of technology is more viable in those. And lastly, some of this research are funded through this Enterprise Trust AI project, which is again funded by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. And I'm collaborating with colleagues all across the globe. And there are people from United Nations, as well as from Europe and US and Canada. And we are exploring how we can use AI for everyday digital record keeping, as well as incorporating different archival and library tasks here. And some of the significant projects involve detecting personal information content in the records before we actually make them publicly available. And the other part is, again, determining the automatic disposition and retention schedules, and how we can use it in archives. And now some of the human-centered AI projects. The first would be the Mozilla Responsible Computing Challenge, which is the CIIR project. And the acronym stands for Cross-Campus Interdisciplinary Responsible Computing Learning Experiences. And it's an initiative which is funded by the Mozilla Foundation along with Mellon Foundation through their Responsible Computing Challenge. And this project is dedicated to empowering students at San Jose State University and in the Bay Area to become responsible ethical professionals in AI and computing fields. So some of the work we are doing, we launched the Circle Speaker Series, and we had the privilege of inviting some exceptional speakers, both in person and virtually. And this has led to more than 100 attendees on campus and over 500 online participants. So where we actually discuss responsible computing, ethical considerations, and how we can incorporate AI in different domains. And the speaker series, they bring together experts from diverse fields. And we had speaker from Timnit Krebru's organization, Alex Hanna. She was there, and we had someone coming in from indigenous libraries talking about how they need large language models to kind of preserve and facilitate the indigenous languages, which is actually getting lost over time. So how we can actually help them protect those. And now Circle also developed a responsible computing action guide. And we also developed a Circle sandbox, which is a hands-on interactive environment which allows students to experiment with their own data through multiple explainable AI algorithms. And they can see what algorithm works best for what kind of data. And again, we are trying to preach the transparency and how that helps with observing which features are actually affecting the results. And as part of the Circle initiative, we have also done multiple revisions to Canvas course shells, developing tutorials for faculty as well as students. And the partnership of San Jose State University and the Mozilla and Knight Foundation was also mentioned in the White House fact sheet. And this is where we are working with the city of San Jose as well as the GovAI Coalition. And the second project, which is La Casa, again, we like acronyms, so it's legally, algorithmically, and culturally aware systems of accountability. We are trying to address the broader need for accountable AI systems. And mostly our focus is on predictive models that affect decision making across various high-stake environments. And this is funded by the San Jose State University's VPRI Teaming Award. And we are structured around three phases. We are trying to involve stakeholders, which are marginalized communities in and around San Jose, which we have already done. And now we are working on building culturally aware explainable models. We have some experts in our group who are working with cultural competence. And one big challenge for us is translating what those cultural competence theories are into applicable, incorporating them into those models so that those models recognize those. So that has been a challenge for that. And finally, again, we will evaluate those models before and roll out prototypes and collect stakeholder feedback on those. Now we have a few more funded and pending grants. The Circle grant, it was renewed for this year, and we will be evaluating the impact of our efforts while continuing the outreach efforts. Then we have a new grant which we just heard of like a few weeks back, which is the Gilman grant, and it was sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, and it will allow us to again host a series of webinars and workshops in the Bay Area, do some industry visits for our students, as well as students coming in from Europe. And there is one IMLS pending grant, which at this point, we don't know if it will ever be approved or if we even will hear a feedback, because based on the presidential orders, IMLS was disbanded. So we're still waiting to hear back on that. But again, the grant addresses the need for libraries to maintain access to critical information during emergencies. And this project, the plan is to use a mixed methods approach to investigate how large language models can support large-scale automated cataloging with a human in the loop design. I'm just pausing for a second to see if there's any questions. I don't see anything on chat, so I'll keep pushing forward on my slides. Any question in the audience who are in person?
It doesn't look like there are right now.
Okay, perfect. So I'll push forward. So now, building on our prior research, and you remember the slide on the social media. So some of our ongoing projects, we are trying to deepen those understandings of real-time information dissemination, crisis response, public opinion formation. And one, we are exploring the integration of large language model in emergency communications. And I think I mentioned some of that before, where we could disseminate those critical information swiftly. And obviously that raises some questions about the data trustworthiness, about the ethics, about privacy. And our focus is ensuring that those AI generated content is both accurate and free from biases. So if we are dealing with communities where we do not have uniform distribution from different demographics, so our models, they're not biased towards any particular community or the majority population there. We are also working towards reducing misinformation in those data generation, biased narratives. Second, that's also something which we are trying to deal with. Because if you think about them in our everyday world, that is serious. But then when we are thinking about them in crisis situations, so then that could have like some serious repercussions. So these models, they will be deployed in sensitive high-stake scenarios. So again, we are looking at how we can make them more transparent, more fair, more ethics-oriented, so we do not get pushback from the communities, and we are trying to ensure that. So our book on AI and social justice, I'm editing that book, but we have some brilliant researchers coming in. They're writing chapters in the book on what are the different issues which we are seeing with this proliferation of AI models. And as they're being deployed in almost every field these days, what does that mean for social justice initiatives? Next, I'm also working on the role of public libraries as crisis response hubs. And like I said, in the city of San Jose, and I have like few other industry and universities as collaborators as well. And the goal is to make sure that those vulnerable communities, those populations, they have access to timely, relevant information. And I have a book chapter on AI-mediated library services, which will be published in the IFLA's 50th year anniversary. So that's coming up. So I'm writing that with a focus on North American libraries. And lastly, through social media, we are investigating those synthetic data generation, synthetic data annotation, multimodal analysis, which involves using both text, visual content, which means videos, then reading the screen content through OCRs, looking at the comment threads, creating those network graphs to look at users. And again, our current project on TikTok that focuses on some of the contemporary topics. So I have some of my students working on Israel-Palestine conflict. Some are working on the past US presidential election and how the narrative has changed since then. On TikTok, some of them are doing cross-platform analysis as well, looking at TikTok and X or Twitter formerly. So we are looking at those global issues and seeing how we can use large language models for data mining on those. And lastly, there's this project on AI on automation. And this is, again, mostly my work with my collaborator on eBay, where the goal is to make sure that large language models are incorporated. First, what are the areas where we can incorporate large language model and generative AI efficiently? And two, saying like, what are the things which we have missed? And can we set up some gold standard rules and regulations or some practices, best practices of incorporating those? So to touch on some of the education and outreach efforts, I think Dr. Allan mentioned that I am co-leading the creation of the certificate in human-centered AI, which is being offered this fall onwards. And we were very excited to see we have students signing on from music, from nursing, from education. We expected some, but then music and nursing, there was one from Japanese studies. So again, people do from all disciplines, they're interested about AI, but making sure that we teach them with that balance. It's not how we would teach AI in a computer science department, but also for the broader communities. And next, we have the interdisciplinary minor in human-centered AI coming up. So it's still going through the approval process, and we should be able to offer it in fall 26. I'm working as the AI fellow, again, working towards AI literacy on campus for both faculty and students, looking at AI plagiarism, how we can detect it through our research, as well as making sure like we come up with the best practices guide for our students as well as faculty. And at the community level, I chaired the ACES Idea Institute on AI for the last 2 years. This is a 4-day workshop where we run 16 online modules on AI and related topics. Last year, we had more than 100 students. This year, we had more than 130 library and information science practitioners, students, and there was some faculty as well. And I was also requested by American Library Association to develop and teach an AI 101 course for library professionals, which I did for last summer. So with that, I'll close where I began. Good AI systems, they not only perform well, but they explain themselves, invite scrutiny, and improve community well-being. And one of the frameworks guiding my approach is HHH framing by Askell and colleagues in their 2021 paper, which says AI should be helpful, honest, and harmless. And this perspective highlights the importance of creating AI systems that serve humanity in ways that are beneficial and non-destructive. So as we move forward, it's essential to assess the impact of different AI technologies. Because as computer scientists, as algorithmic people, we do know their positive potential. But again, it's important for us to mitigate the risks that this may introduce. So I would end this presentation with a shout out to my lab, ICANN, my students, my collaborators. And if any of this resonates with you, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And these are some of the QR codes in case you want to connect. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is James. So I'm going to ask a question. A couple slides ago, you talked about your integration of large language models for real-time content generation during crises.
Yes.
It was under the, I forget what the title of the slide was. You talked about ensuring data trustworthiness and ethical issues such as privacy and bias. I'm wondering how you were going about trying to ensure the data trustworthiness and ethical issues and so on, and how you were measuring whether or not you're successful.
Yes. So that's a great question because data trustworthiness, that we know there's a bunch of ways we can deal with some of those algorithmically and numerically. But a part of our design is involving the community in it. So when we are developing some of those models, we involve community in the first place. So we are conducting some interviews, seeing where those models are usually failing to kind of adhere to the community expectations, or where we are seeing that some of the information which is being generated or propagated are actually not aligned with the community kind of how what they feel is to be correct. And this is especially occurring when we are dealing with the Hispanic populations in California, when we are dealing with the indigenous communities. So that's where we are feeling either the model does not have community-specific data, or the data which is there, which is very Eurocentric, which is traditional English data. So our models are not really working that well there. So our feedback, our evaluation will be based on human or community involvement. So we are generating those, and we are asking them to look into the data and say if they are feeling that they kind of capture the truth, the community truth there.
So have you, or do you already have results so you can know examples of where it's failing, rather than just sort of a broad cultural mismatch point which you're making? I wonder if there's more specific examples than that.
There were a few, and this is from last year where we are working with a bunch of different algorithms. And we saw Google's Gemini had a habit of coming up with a random Hispanic names when they are addressing users. And some of them, when we assigned different persona to the generations, we saw that they were pretty biased in some of those, which could be perceived as insulting if you are an African American female, or if you are a Hispanic male, because it assumes, it makes certain assumptions during generation, which could be considered very stereotypical.
Okay, we got another question here. I don't see any online yet, so we'll keep going here.
I'm Kyle Whitecross. I'm a second year PhD student in the CIIR. And in your last slide, you mentioned your guiding philosophy was the 3 H's, harmless and helpful. And I don't remember what the third one was, but your work has shown that there's clearly room for improvement in making AI systems that exist better along those axes. But I'm curious what your perspective is on how we can get large AI companies to actually do that. Because over the past decade, social media companies have shown that you can develop systems and you can potentially make them less harmful and better for the community. But a lot of times, if you go in the opposite direction, if you design systems that are designed to engage people and enrage them or incite them to do things that are not necessarily good, you can make more money, more profit. So how can we prevent the same thing from happening with AI companies? How can we get them to follow your direction of research? And that's a hard question, but I'm curious what your perspective is on it.
No, that's a great question, Kyle. And yeah, helpful, honest, harmless. So yeah, that's the goal. We were actually pretty optimistic a few years back, because we made some headway into policies. We felt like policies were being brought in place, because none of these companies, like, again, to be very honest, we realize how this whole corporate market works, because the whole AI development is supported financially by these large corporates. And what we are seeing from data to models, as at San Jose State, we don't have access to those kind of huge AI networks or AI architectures that we would otherwise have being part of big corporate organizations. So again, those are the ones funding it, and they need to recover some of the cost. And then there's obviously the profitability, which goes in a capitalist market. But we cannot ignore those. But only way where we could make these big AI companies adhere to these principles is through policies, right? Because once we have those policies in place, then it's easier to say that you need to be accountable for what you develop. And as developers or as CEOs, if your software, if your models, they are biased, if they commit some kind of ethical misdemeanor, then you should be responsible for it. And those policies were coming up. We were pretty optimistic about it. But what we have seen since then, that it has died down a little with recent times, and that's a pain point. Because a lot of the ethical AI groups in big organizations, they were laid off. We had friends and colleagues there as well. And so our goal is to keep hammering on it as faculty, which we can in educational institutions, teaching our students who will be the future professionals that those are some things they should be wary about, because when you're building AI, it just doesn't operate in a vacuum. So you need to think about those communities and people and end users. So we are going with that approach. We are hoping that all our outreach efforts, all our educating our PhD students, our master students who will be working in the industry a few years from now, that will bear fruits. And again, I strongly believe in inherent good in people. So I feel like if we show people what the challenges are, where the problem lies, at least a majority of them will try to address those. So I know it sounds a little wishy-washy, but again, that's something which we are hoping for. I don't know if it answered your question.
No, that certainly does. Like education and availability of information about how things can be better will certainly make it easier, at least for companies to embrace this philosophy that you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll ask another question, Vic. If you look over all of the things that you listed, of the things you've done and are doing, I guess I'm more interested in the ones that are actually done at this point. What was the most surprising thing that you came across? What did you learn? And what are the recommendations that come out of it? I'm sort of interested in a sort of a technical surprising result. Like, I didn't expect this, and that made us realize we needed to do the following thing, and we recommend that AI systems do Z or something like that.
Yeah, so I will go to our current ongoing project where we already have some results. So content analysis, throughout the years we have heard that's very subjective. It's very hard for a machine to replicate what human content analysis, how that works, the qualitative coders. It's very hard to replicate that. So in our work, we tried to replicate it through large language models. I think we used DeepSeek for that, as well as GPT-4o, which were talking among themselves and trying to do the content analysis. So we didn't have high hopes for it. We actually thought it would perform terribly. So we were surprised with how good it worked, because when we compared it with, we asked humans to come in post fact to check the analysis, and we saw a pretty good accuracy, if I'm allowed to use it. But they said that the performance was up to standard. So it's probably how a 12th grader would do it. But again, the performance was pretty good. So it was beyond our expectation. Now, since we are working in the domain of palliative care, which is a very sensitive topic by itself, we felt that the large language model captured everything which is happening superficially. But there were issues with sarcasm and irony, and sometimes humor, but a pained humor, because these are the people who are dealing with end-of-life treatments, and they are talking about it with humor, but that was not a real humor, which the model completely failed to catch. But human coders, when they came in, when they assess the content, they recognize it right away. And this is not something new, which we have seen in the past. But again, we were hoping that for a model which was performing predominantly well, would detect those. It hasn't. So now we are again going back to the drawing board, saying like, what kind of architecture will again help us do that? And again, I do not develop model architecture myself. So what I do is I read into literature, find models that work, make some tweaks on them, and try to apply them in my work. So again, trying to see what we could make work in that situation. But currently we are working on the gold standard data annotation. So once we have that, we'll probably have some better idea.
Okay, it looks like there's no questions remotely, and I think the folks here are obviously they didn't have a cup of coffee. They're staring into space. I think we actually had a frost here this morning. It looks nice and warm outside, so they want to go enjoy the weather.
Sure.
So I think we'll stop now. Thank you so much, Vic. One more time, can we thank our speaker?
Thank you.
I